Hello everyone and welcome to my review of the Ultimate Argument Campaign for the SU-27 in DCS World. So I've recently finished this campaign. You can see the series being uploaded onto my YouTube channel. And before anything else, just some basics of the campaign. This is definitely one of the older campaigns out there. As far as I can tell, it is actually the oldest campaign still available for sale on the Eagle Dynamics store. So it is very old. It's also one of the only ones available for a Flaming Cliffs 3 module. Now, I still wanted to try it despite all of that because I love the SU-27. It was one of my first flight simulators ever, was the very old SU-27 game by Eagle Dynamics before they were Eagle Dynamics. And this campaign has been, iffy. The campaign itself starts really strong. Fly the SU-27 in a fictional war post-2008 between Russia and Georgia, though weirdly they don't mention Georgia in the actual campaign briefing, but then they do later on. It seems to be a bit of a confusion over whether or not they wanted to name it as Georgia. But the first few missions do start really strong, got some good variation between doing anti-strike fleet missions, shooting down frog feet, then the next mission shooting down hinds in a very mountainous environment. Really interesting, really different, some bombing in there. But then the campaign just starts to go downhill. They really seem to slowly start to run out of ideas and everything begins to slow. You end up with escort missions where nothing attacks anything that you're escorting. The low point of a campaign is one where you are flying a rebasing mission, ostensibly guarding a transport, but there are literally no enemy aircraft on the map at the time. And then it kind of picks up after there in the fact that there is combat after that mission, but the combat from there on out is absolutely easy. Kind of story-wise, you've taken out the bulk of the enemy defences at that point, so they're only throwing up aging F5s and F4s. But from a campaign pacing perspective, what that means is the first few missions are the only ones with real challenge in there, when the enemies still have their air defences up, when they're still fielding F-16s. By the end, you're just shooting fish in a barrel, taking out F-5s with the SU-27's ER missiles. It's just not really that interesting, not really that challenging in any way. Even the ground strikes tend not to be that much of a challenge because all enemy air defense ends up being suppressed. So it's just a case of you going along, dropping one pass of bombs over a target that is either static or nearly static, and then flying off because that's basically all the SU-27 can carry. Any mission that there does seem to be hinting at a bit of a challenge, and there are a couple where they make out that a big enemy airstrike is coming in, but then with all of those there is always a huge number of allied planes. Always the allied planes launch before you, so reach the combat before you, and so you're struggling really to get anything. Some of the missions I ended up replaying just because my initial recording was so boring I didn't really want to load it up to YouTube. And by the time we get to the final mission of the campaign, this is kind of the epitome of that. They finally put F-16s back in, and unfortunately the F-16s are outnumbered 2-1 by SU-27s, and so there is virtually nothing that you need to do for that one. And this isn't to say the campaign is terrible, it's okay. It's about what I'd expect for one of the 3 campaigns that gets bundled in with an actual module just so you have something to do single player as you do. Really not what I'd expect for a paid-for module, even an older paid-for module. It's just not that interesting, not that engaging, and there's nothing really unique about it. It's a fine campaign if you want to learn the basics of the SU-27. It goes through all of its basic capabilities, though nothing out of the ordinary there. And one nice thing is, mostly because of the SU-27's very low loiter time, it does mean the missions are nice, short and sharp. There's only so long an SU-27 can really stay in the air, so you're never lingering around long. And so it can be good if you want to get a campaign but you don't have a large chunk of time in your day. You can't set aside, say, a couple of hours for an A10 campaign. but you can set aside, 40 minutes to do a quick mission here. That's absolutely fine. And then, of course, there are the bugs. Being an old campaign and really not being supported anymore, the bugs just start to pile up. Most aren't too bad, but the rather infamous one is Mission 18 is not completable anymore. Your team accomplished the task and the campaign just doesn't tick over. So yeah, it's really hard for me to recommend this really to anyone. I think if you do want to start with the SU-27, just do the basic inbuilt campaign, or go onto the user-generated files and find something a bit more unique, interesting on there. If you want a challenge in a modern fighter, I think you've got to look somewhere else, because this isn't really challenging, not really interesting. Honestly, just a bit bland for me. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know if you agree, if you disagree. Is there a particular user SU-27 campaign that you'd really recommend? Just leave your comments down below. And otherwise, I hope that I will catch you in the next campaign that we do. At the time of recording, that is still being voted on, but we'll know the results pretty soon. Until then, remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers.